We're almost. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Game Changer Movement Virtual Living Room. I'm here with Antika Lisha, and I've just returned from this amazing experience. It's called BIF 2015, and BIF stands for Business Innovation Factory, and it took place in Providence, Rhode Island. And it's I've been to this conference now 3 times in the past 4 years. I missed last year, but I'm amazed and I'm inspired, and I get really pumped whenever I mean, let me explain what this conference is. It's basically 32 TED Talks over 2 days. So you get 4 sessions per day of 4 20-minute storytellers. And one of the storytellers stole the show, basically. And it was this woman named Sophie, and she is just a young phenom. And she kind of went from kind of somewhat invisible to viral because she created this relatively primitive video game called Tampon Run. So in essence, the game, and she's going to be a guest. She's going to pull up a virtual couch in our virtual living room sometime soon. So I'm excited about that conversation whenever that gets to happen and whenever our schedules align. I just wanted to, like, one of the major themes from this whole conference was just exactly what we've been talking about for a while, which is, like, there's no more service for, like, it's about creating conversations with. And I think that's the big point here, is that we, as the Game Changer movement, are doing things inclusively, which means as this virtual living room expands, we want you to pull up a couch and be part of every single process that we're working on. And so, like, 3 years ago at this conference, the CEO, the founder of this experience, a guy named Saul, he just had this quote. He said, "Create movements, not organizations." And so here we are creating a movement, and I'm so excited just because whenever I meet all these new amazing people, I feel so much more hopeful that that we've got a shot at doing this, but our real chance is doing it together and not creating more and more silos. It's time to coalesce and to really understand that it's better together, whatever that means. So this concept of Tampon Run, it was like she realized that there was no safe place to talk about menstruation, especially as a youth, and she's now learning that through gaming that even boys who play Tampon Run are getting more conversational about menstruation. So here's just another example about how the gaming space, this very powerful, amazing gaming space, is transforming lives. And so every single time we get to highlight and showcase an example of a game that chooses something other than bullets and true to life, blood dispersal as their main, kind of selling point, then we're moving in the right direction. And so, I'm excited that we're going to create an inclusive process to create agency, true agency and a true sense of significance with the youth that we want to serve, or to communicate with, So that's a lot of withs, but so that's my yeah.
I love the fact that it's starting conversation within the youth community. I think that we can develop, as the Game Changers movement, develop many different games on topics like this that are kind of underrated or under talked about. When you said, oh, she's, even the boys that are playing the game now are having this conversation about your period, or holy blood, as I call mine, that it's like, wow, because it's had this bad name. It's been like, oh, the curse. And there's been all this negativity for women, I know too, around the menstrual cycle. And we're just starting this conversation in my age group around the red tent and red tent groups and red tent this and red tent that. It's become kind of the thing lately about really expressing and being proud of, and like realizing that this is the creation of life and what allows us to create life and like bring the next generation on. And then to have a conversation where you would jump into the conversation with your husband or whoever it is, or boyfriend, and it not be, oh, well, you're about to have your period. Well, no wonder you're cranky little blah, 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 you know, and it could be about this positive side and this creation. I mean, I think that is super cool. And I got really excited when you just said that, 'cause I'm like, we don't have that conversation. And I know for me with two girls, I'm really having to have that conversation and really openly talk about what happens with the moon and why our bodies go through this, and how it's very natural and nurturing, and how we get internal and external feedback, and how to kind of avoid the crankiness, as I've learned through trial and error of my own life. And I think we can do that with many games and on topics that aren't regularly talked about, like death, or losing a parent, or going through divorce, or communication and relationship, or sex, or having a baby and raising a kid, or I mean, I'm like, ooh, I could think of a bazillion, like how to do your taxes,
right?
Like things that we need to learn in school that they don't friggin' teach us, like how to balance a checkbook and do taxes, positive thinking, and how to think right. Like there's so many different little mini games, as you said. She did basically a primitive video game. I don't know what that means, since like anything is above primitive to me when it comes to video gaming, which is kind of the hilarity of me being a part of the game changer movement. But I know just little things in games my kids love. Like there was a new release, and there's now cats in Minecraft, and like the whole world erupted in my house this past weekend of like the cats and the dogs eating the cats, and Mom, look at this, and do you want to play, and do you want to do that? You know? And so it was like this one little thing changed the entire game. And we can really do that within these games to start topics and talk about things that are really wonderful and get the youth involved. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and
that's my little spew on it.
Yeah. Well, there's, you know, so another presenter at this conference, at the BIF experience, was a woman by the name of Robin Chase, who wrote this book called Peers Inc. You know, and she highlighted and showcased the world of Uber and Airbnb, and she founded Zipcar, you know, and so, you know, there's this world of excess capacity. And, you know, I'm sure that this is going to be a meme and a theme in the game changer movement, because the more I learn, the more we learn about the hours that everyone is spending in the gaming space, the more I realize we need to get in there. You know, we need to get into that space and create different options that are just as graphically inspiring or enticing in some way. And, you know, one of the big factoids that I've been learning is that between birth and age 21, kids are spending at least 10,000 hours. Most kids on average are spending 10,000 hours in the gaming space. And
so that makes them an expert.
Right. So if you combine that factoid with Malcolm Gladwell's, like, you know, Outliers, you know, we got something, you know. And so like, I think that's the real like aha moment. So instead of in the early days of the game changer movement saying we just got to rebel against this and give them all these healthy alternatives to gaming, you know, now we need to say, okay, They're going to be there. That's their new language. That's their new touchstone with the rest of the world. And so, you know, kind of borrowing from last week's episode, we were talking about like the idea of like, it's, you know, it's 9:30. Do you know where your children are? You know, yeah, you know where they are. And they're in their room.
Who they're with.
Have no idea who they're talking to. And I think the other challenge is, can we influence what they're talking about in a way that doesn't create this adversarial relationship? You know,
kind of back through the back door. Kind of through the back door.
Or their front door. You know, I mean, I think that's the thing.
By creating front doors that we want them to be in. Yeah.
And we're creating the door by co-creating the door, you know, and I think that's the other part of this.
Yeah, is the with mentality that we're creating.
And that was the other big theme of this year's BIF, you know, is just like, we can't do things in silos. We have to do things with, like, you know, I mean, the word with wasn't just the game changer movement idea, which was so encouraging. Like, I don't want a patent on the word with, you know. I want with to be like the largest with we could, you know, with being WITH, also being WIDTH, you know, just like
aren't you funny?
Yeah, it's kind of a 2 cup of tea Monday. So that, all that being said, like, it's really good for us to go out into the world and realize that, you know, we don't have to even create the games. We just have to create this, like, hold the space for game creation. You know, I mean, that's why you and I, who aren't going to be the ones coding, you know, to make this happen, you know, we're going to be the ones holding the space, saying, what would you like to see in your ideal game? Oh, okay. Who of you knows how to code? You know, like, and like, how do we, you know, have that happen with its own process? So, so I'm just, you know, really inspired about, you know, what the possibilities are. And I feel like, you know, from a, you know, skill set standpoint, it frees us up to do what we do best, which is, you know, build relationships and just make the calls. And I mean, all the other, I mean, equally as important as the people I was watching present were the people I was sitting next to and getting to meet, you know, in the experience. And I guess what I love about this whole setup is that everyone sees the same content. So, you know, so anyway, I mean, like, so everyone, like, there's no kind of breakout sessions where you get a choice between this and that. You know, you go to the breaks and you're like, what do you think of that last, you know, group of speakers? And then you can have these real legit conversations and create tons of movement. And so, you know, they're just, we now have, the game changer movement now has way more friends than it had, you know, last week. And and so now you know, I'm excited. Yeah. So
that is, I love how things are moving here. I love how everything is opening up and expanding for the game changer movement. You know, since we started the living rooms, like a month ago, maybe, or however long it's been. And I know that this clarity that we have on how the world can really work together to utilize technology, and also how we can start really educating and re-educating ourselves about those subliminal messages and what we're watching and what we're playing, and how we're utilizing our time, and how can we change as a society to do that even bigger. And that's that with part. Like, we can't one person at a time be a society. We really have to do it as an entire group, and then really respecting and loving our kids to bring them into this group and make them equally as important and have that validation that we were talking about on the very first hangout that I think that we did. We talked about how that significance is so very important. So creating that within the gaming world, that's real life significance, you know, that's going to pan out to real life things, like being able to speak at something like BIF if they create an incredible game.
Mm-hmm.
And how important that platform will be, and how beautiful it will be to be able to back these kids up by building what we're already establishing and building these relationships to say, oh, you have this gaming idea, fantastic. We have the community and we have the funds to put behind you and get your game out into the world, really giving back to the world. And those funds are what we're raising right now by putting on events, or to put on events and find the kids to get involved and find the parents to get involved and start this motion going. Yeah. And that's what Indiegogo is about right now, and why we need these funds, so we can really invest in these ideas with, like you said, you know coders, you know people. We have this background, we have the nonprofit, we have the vision, and this putting it into motion is going to really take the community. People joining the living room, joining the conversation, and yes, like investing in the dream with us.
Well, and here's an interesting thought. You know, I don't know if you watch, you know, any late night television. I don't have a television, but I was just watching some Jimmy Fallon kind of reruns. You know, where he kind of challenges some of his guests to, like, you know, impersonate, you know, Walter Cronkite, you know, reading the Gettysburg Address, you know. And so there are these, like, you know, two different dials that, like, spin around. And so, like, you know, what if we had these, you know, events where we, you know, we could say, okay, you know, have Elmer Fudd's, like, you know, avatar, and, you know, Superman's, I don't know, characteristic, or, you know, I mean, anyway, like, what I'm saying is, like, we can, when we're shifting the conversation, and, like, we know we're just taking out one main ingredient, like, the main ingredient that we're just taking out is guns, bullets, and true to life blood dispersal, you know.
Right.
And, like, then the sky's the limit on the rest of the conversation, you know. And so, like, we could say, how does a game, like, just a, you know, a silly-ish kind of whimsical game like Tampon Run become as profound as it's become, you know? Like, I mean, it's just like, you know, when you hear those two words, Tampon Run, like, you know, I mean, I'm sure many, you know, many people who are going to view this, like, know what it means to do a tampon run, you know. And so, like, you know, the woman who created this game, you know, she got to push through so many different barriers because of this one game. Like, you know, she was in this environment that wasn't entirely supportive of her making this game in the first place. So she actually had to get special permission to do it, you know. And I think that's part of the challenge here, is, like, how do we co-create a world where you don't need permission to create a game that enhances the conversation in so many different ways, you know, and about so many different things. So, like, what other topics can we come up with? Like tampons and politics, you know, like, and then, like, that's what I was trying to get at, is, like, you know, like, what other kind of different ways can we, you know, have fun with different concepts that don't immediately pair, you know. I mean, like, one of the ideas, you know, and I'm just throwing stuff out there, and one of my hopes is to create one of the retreats potentially in California, and to do it at a place where the spiritual community can align with the tech community. And what's amazing about Southern California, or, like, you know, kind of the span of the Pacific Coast Highway between San Francisco and LA, is that there's, like, you know, Silicon Valley, and there's also, like, spiritual communities, and the Chopra Center, like, you know, you know, and there's a Silomar, which is where Wayne Dyer's The Shift was set. So I mean, there's so many different places where we can gather and kind of align all these different energies. And so, you know, what does spirituality and menstruation, you know, if we like did that kind of game, you know, like all these different things. And like, so right now, it's like and the other thing is, you know, from a tech piece, like we're going to be able to do anything we want. You know, like one of the people that you met, you know, a few months ago, or I don't know when, but, you know, is really interested in this invention that converts plastic containers back to petroleum, you know?
Yes,
Like,
Carol, absolutely.
so we're going to have different, you know, ways to get sort of a do-over. We're going to get to hit the global reset button, you know, on a lot of issues, so long as we embrace this technological disruption all along the way, but we do it consciously, you know? So, I mean, I think there's a lot of people sitting in like, you know, silos saying, can we do this? And their sole job is to say, yes, we can bring back the woolly mammoth. And then there's this other group of people saying, really? Where would they live? Like, where would a woolly mammoth live? You know,
Right.
I don't think so. Like, you know, even Alaska doesn't seem like an option right now. So, so anyway, like I think, you know, there needs to be some, you know, magic event that brings the spiritual community together with the creation community, like the inventor community, and have us like have these conversations rather than party alignment or, you know, debates. Like debates go nowhere. Like everyone says, oh, you know, point counterpoint, great. And then at the end of the day, we agree to disagree. Yay, let's go home and do everything the way we did it yesterday. Come on, you know, like I think the word debate is so last year or last century, you know, so I feel like it's time to just turn debates into conversations, and to create processes where we create right action. And there's nothing more ripe for that than the gamified world, you know? I mean, there's so many applications that can just, you know, find safe passage. Like a game called Tampon Run now exists. You know, there's going to be a book about it. There's going to be a movie about it, you know? So like all these things are really amazing. So,
yes, we need a game changer movie.
yeah. Well, I mean, we've got the film person, the, you know, and one of the, he asked me a while ago.
The rise of the game changer, and are you it?
Right.
It starts here in the living room, everybody. Come and join us. Come and join us.
Well, I mean, maybe that's it. Like maybe the movie starts like, you know, maybe we're making the movie now and like
we don't even know it. We don't even know it.
So I mean, this is all like it feels like the combination of the Truman Show and, you know, like the Terminator, you know. So like you know, I do feel like, I don't know if you remember Max Headroom, like you know, like when I was a kid, there was this show where there's like this virtual being named Max Headroom, you know, and I forgot the name of the show, but it showed up in my memory banks this morning, and I was just like, oh wow, you know, like here we are, like you know, like we're in this screen. And I was thinking to myself, like 10, 12 years ago, like to produce a TV show every week, holy cow, like that's a livelihood. And now we just press click and we've got a TV show, you know. So with technology like this, it's just time to embrace it and say, okay, you know, we can do this. Should we? And above and beyond should, like, what do we use this moment for? Because like we now know that video is gonna take our bandwidth to like the next level of, you know, consuming like 98% of what the web it means to be in the web. So so anyway, I'm spouting off, like, and I feel like I just want to circle back to the true premise, which is agency, significance. Like, we need to come together and let kids know how much they matter right now. And I keep on living into memories of my own personal life. And, you know, Antika, when you and I share, like, you know, we didn't have much agency when we were kids, you know, and that's where our heart comes in. And that's why we're running the Game Changer movement, is because we know what it feels like not to have agency. So we don't want other kids to experience a life where they have to wait until they're 18 or 21 or some other age to have agency in their own lives. You know, we want kids to feel empowered now. And it's not even something that we can give to kids. You know, like, we can't say, here's empowerment, have it. You know, we just need to hold the space for kids to find their own empowerment.
To be able to come in and actively say yes to stepping into their own power. Yeah.
Right. And I think, just like just to circle back to what the real challenge, like what the Game Changer movie would be about, is answering the question, what would inspire youth to trade in 1 million violent video games, you know, as, you know, what would incentivize, what would inspire, you know, what is that tipping point, you know, to borrow from more of Malcolm Gladwell, you know, what is going to create the moment that the movement does its own thing, you know, and what, you know, how are people going to eventually know that we're showing up once a quarter somewhere, you know, Texas or California or wherever, and, you know, we're gonna create events where the ticket price, the entry fee, whatever we want to call it, is a violent video game. And of course, we don't want you to go out and buy another violent video game in order to get in. But we want you to get creative, and we want you to realize that a certain disruption, a pattern interrupt, needs to happen in order for change to happen. So, you know, when we convert from the old gaming platforms to the one that we're creating together, we need to interrupt that pattern. You know, if you're sitting with your old way 24 hours a day, you're not gonna even see the advertisement for this. You know, like, you need to lift your eyes up a little bit in order to engage. And that said, you know, like, that's why we're here every Monday, and just to, you know, create the body of work that says there are so many spokes to this wheel. You know, I mean, the Game Changer movement is just starting. And I mean, I guess that's the other factoid or learning from the conference, is like, what we can do with technology is just starting. If you think of the last 20 years, you know, we went from, you know, black and white TV to, like,
maybe 50 years.
Our own TV shows. What?
Maybe 50 years for black and white TV.
Really? I don't know. I mean, like, I had one when I was 11. So, I mean, maybe that's 30 years. So
yeah, but when you were 11, there was color TV.
True. I'll give you that. So, I mean, like, let's just say, like, has history seen any other 5 decades in a row where this much, you know, technology has shifted, you know? And on the flip side, you know, there are now, because of other technological advances, more generations alive to experience that all at once. So now we can talk to our great-great-great-grandparents and say, what was it like when the radio was the only way you learned anything about anyone who wasn't sitting next to you at the dinner table, you know? And what was it like before then, you know? So I mean, we've got, like, all these amazing opportunities, and the gaming world is, you know, what's interesting is that I used to learn about, you know, how email was being used by different generations. And there was this, like, lag in the middle generations, like, you know, where, you know, 30 to 50, you know, wasn't engaging, like, they weren't the early adopters, like the 20 somethings, you know, 20 and under, or like 25 and under, were engaging at a high rate. And then they saw this other blip, which was like 58 and older. Because why? Because they wanted, like, grandparents wanted to stay in contact with their grandkids. You know, it wasn't about technology at all. It was all about relationships. So, I mean, I feel like, you know, that's the blessing and curse of the internet. You know, we could be as isolated as we want, or we could be as connected as we want, all in the same breath. So, so I feel like it's huge.
Yeah. So that's pretty much our 30 minutes. And here for today. But we would really like you to be involved. Everybody, we want this to be a with conversation. And so if you'd like to join us, contact Eric. Just go ahead and friend him, and he'll invite you to the next living room. Just tell him that you want to join us in the living room, and we'll invite you in back here so you can talk and connect. And also get involved with us at Indiegogo.com and just type in Game Changer Movement, and you can donate and get involved, become part of the movement there. And we'd really appreciate that. And of course, share this with your friends, invite people to listen, and help us get the word out, because that is why we are having these meetings in the first place, and going through these ideas and starting these conversations to continue these conversations on a deeper level. And we just really appreciate you here, and thank you for being a part of our live audience and a part of the living room in the way that you are.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.